The Marketing Legends video series is made possible through the generous support of the Chef Foundation. The Chef Foundation is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to develop and recognize scholars and scholarship in marketing globally and further the development of marketing thought.
Welcome to the American Marketing Association's Marketing Legends interview series. I am Kent Monroe, the J.M. Jones Distinguished Professor Emeritus at the University of Illinois. I will serve as today's host. Since 1937, the AMA has served as a global leader in marketing knowledge. Today, the AMA strives to be the most relevant force and voice influencing marketing around the world, to be an essential community for marketing people. The Marketing Legends program is designed to honor exceptional marketing people within that community and to create a repository of educational content to inspire students, scholars, and managers. Today I'm speaking with Roland Russ. Thank you, Roland, for joining us.
Well, happy to be here, Kent.
Roland Russ is Distinguished University Professor and David Bruce Smith Chair in Marketing at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland, where he is founder and executive director of two research centers, the Center for Excellence in Service and the Center for Complexity in Business. He has served as editor of the Journal of Marketing, founded the annual Frontiers in Service Conference, was founding editor of the Journal of Service Research, and currently is editor of International Journal Research in Marketing. He has received the AMA Irwin McGraw-Hill Distinguished Marketing Educator Award, the AMA Fellow Award, Fellow of the Informed Society for Marketing Science, the Paul D. Converse Award, and the Distinguished Marketing Educator Award from the Academy of Marketing Science. Professor Russ received his doctorate and MBA degrees from the University of North Carolina and a BA from DePaul University. Roland, I have just briefly summarized your background. Please give us a snapshot of your early life and tell us how you ended up studying marketing.
Well, I really started out in mathematics, and I really studied math because I thought it was the easiest subject, which is maybe not the usual reason people study math. But I also was really interested at that time when I was in college. I saw my professors, they seemed to have a nice, easy life. You know, they would teach a few classes and then they'd go sit in their office and chat with students. I thought that was terrific. It seemed like a really great thing. So I thought I'd become a professor. But then I ended up, I started out in a PhD program in mathematics, but then was gravitating toward the more practical parts of it. You know, the statistics and the applied parts of mathematics. And so I decided that I would switch over to business. And I found that marketing was an area that mathematics could really be helpful in. And so I started to become a student in marketing. And so I got my MBA and I got my PhD. And really, one surprise I got was that it wasn't so easy to be a professor because you know, people have to actually do research, which I discovered that I really enjoyed. So I became much more into my job than I ever even thought I would, and really have enjoyed the career tremendously. I really enjoy being a researcher, I enjoy being a teacher, I enjoy everything about my job. I can't imagine doing anything that I would enjoy more.
Your description of how you evolved actually resonates with me, because I started out as a mathematics student, and I gravitated in my second year into economics and into marketing. So we have very similar backgrounds to start with. And I do remember when I first went to the college as a freshman, and they said, well, you're going to major in math, you should do physics. And I said, no, not physics, chemistry then. Well, okay, I'll do chemistry. But by my sophomore year, I'd found economics, and you could apply mathematics in economics. So that worked for me. I noticed that you are a runner and you were a student athlete at DePaul.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about your experiences there.
Well, yeah, I was a very serious runner in college and ended up setting 12 school records at the school. I was a national class runner and ultimately was named to the DePaul Athletic Hall of Fame, which was a tremendous pleasure to me to have my athletic career recognized like that. I maybe got as much appreciation out of that as any of the awards I've ever won.
You still run?
Yes, I do. I actually was running pretty well until about age 60. When I was 60 years old, I ran a half marathon in an hour and 26 minutes, which is pretty good for that age. But since then, I've had a series of injuries that have really caused me trouble. So right now, I'm down to about 25 miles a week of running, and so I'm not running nearly as much as I was, and not nearly as seriously, but I'm still enjoying it.
Do you do any coaching? Or?
Yeah, in fact I do. I coach a number of runners and triathletes, and one of my triathletes just won the world championship in her age group.
Very good, very good. Makes you feel very proud, I'm sure.
Yeah, very much.
Roland, what prompted you to start the Frontiers in Service Conference?
Well, when I went to Vanderbilt, I started my academic career at University of Texas at Austin, and then moved to Vanderbilt as the head of the department. And we determined that we needed a niche specialization for our group. And we chose service because that was a very rapidly growing area. And so I had, up to that time, really done no research in service whatsoever. But I decided to switch my research to the service area. And as part of what I was doing with the department, I started a Center for Excellence in Service at Vanderbilt, and then tried to help boost the infrastructure for the service field. And part of that infrastructure was building the Frontiers in Service Conference, founding that. And it's now in its 25th year. It'll be held in Bergen, Norway in June, and this will be the 25th. And then the other thing that I founded was the Journal of Service Research, which that started up in 1998, and it's now a very highly regarded journal, by far the highest cited service research journal, and it's been around now for 18 years and is going strong.
How do you see this evolving, particularly research and services? How has it evolved, and where do you see it might be heading?
I think that the big thing that's driving service research is technology. I think everything follows technology. And so what you're seeing is all these methods of communicating better with customers, analyzing information of customers, and of course, the big data that everybody talks about is typically customer data. And so these three are all things that are driven by technology, and all are proceeding very, very rapidly and advancing. And so everything that's happening in service is coming from this. So I think the next thing that's going to hit is the information that's going to be coming from the internet, not only being between people, but also being between people and things, and between things and things. So I think that is really going to change service tremendously. The other thing that's really going to emerge, I think, is mobile service. Just about everybody now has some sort of mobile device, but marketers have not really figured out yet how to leverage that. And I think that's going to be a tremendous advance in the service field.
Does your interest in these two centers, the Center for Excellence in Service and the Center for Complexity in Business, I think what you just were describing kind of indicates why you have these two. Could you expand a little bit about how these work?
Yeah. You might say those don't seem very related, but actually I do think they're related. The Center for Complexity in Business is really taking a look at computer science-related techniques. And the computer science-related techniques are coming from these same technological trends. In particular, computation is much more cost-effective than it ever has been. You have very powerful computational methods that can be used that didn't used to be feasible 20 years ago. And so this enables us to model business processes in a very complex way. You know, often complexity is about setting up very simple rules for agents within the system and then figuring out how complex outcomes occur at the aggregate level. And so I see those things as being very related, and techniques such as agent-based modeling are much more feasible now than they ever have been. We can simulate what business systems do.
How do you make knowledge that gets developed at each of these centers? How do you make them accessible into the marketing community?
I think it really requires a portfolio of activities, and I think that there's not only the typical classical academic articles, but also writing for business people. So, for example, I'll write articles for the Harvard Business Review or the MIT Sloan Management Review to try to communicate to the business community. The other thing that I think the business community pays attention to is books. So, you know, I've published a number of books. I believe it's 9 now, I think. And so those kinds of things get out to the business community as well. The other thing that I try to do, of course, is to interact with businesses in different ways, you know, through organizations like the AMA, organizations like the Marketing Science Institute, and through my own consulting efforts. So try to communicate with businesses in that way as well, and also my centers, of course.
Now, you attended the AMA Doctoral Consortium in 1979.
Yes.
And you've been very engaged since that time with these various consortia. Was the consortium your first time being involved with the AMA?
I think the first time I was involved with AMA was really the interviewing process, because AMA is really what brings all that together. But then the consortium, and yeah, I've been back to the consortium as a faculty member since on a number of occasions as well. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think that AMA has really helped bring the community together, and not just the academics, but connecting academics with practitioners, which I think is very important.
How has your involvement with AMA influenced your own career since you actually were at the consortium back in 1972?
I think that the one thing AMA does is it brings people together and creates community. So that's been something that I've really been very involved with. So for example, the Frontiers in Service Conference, which I founded, was founded as an AMA conference, and AMA has been a sponsor of it for 25 years. So that's been very major. The other thing that I've been very involved with is the AMA SIGs, the special interest groups. So I've been involved with really several SIGs, not just the service SIG, which I've talked about quite a bit here, but the marketing research SIG I was head of. The marketing strategy SIG is another one that I've been very involved with. So those have created communities within particular interest groups.
Are there any new areas of research that you think people should be getting into and doing more research and studying?
Yeah, I think that the big thing that people should be thinking right now is, again, in line with the technology idea. I think that people should be thinking about how data changes things. You know, the thought experiment I have is, imagine if you had immediate, instantaneous communication with everybody that you wanted. And imagine that you had the ability to store an infinite amount of information. And imagine that you could analyze that information instantaneously any way you wanted to do it. To me, that's the direction the field is going. So often what that means is thinking about computer science methods, because the computer scientists are the people who are most advanced. Computer science and information systems people are the ones that are most advanced in thinking about how to deal with data, how to put data together, how to structure it, how to analyze it quickly and efficiently. These are the things that I think are really going to change our field.
Much of your work has focused on quality and productivity in service and how to measure its financial impact. And I think, knowing some of your work, this is an area in which you have been able to merge, if you wish, an academic-oriented piece of research with the practical side of how do we help the business community or marketers learn how to do their jobs better. So, are there differences, and have you found there are differences in how you look at this between whether you're working on quality and productivity in the service area, or are these methods equally applicable into manufacturing and other areas of business?
Yeah, that's a very good point that you're making. It really turns out that quality and productivity work very differently in service than they do in goods. You know, with goods, you very often have a situation where if you increase quality, you increase productivity simultaneously. That's the Deming quality revolution. That was what that was all about. You know, the traditional quality methods all assume that you can improve quality and productivity simultaneously, and typically you can. But in service, my research with people like Klaus Fornell and Gene Anderson and Chris Moorman have shown that really you have a trade-off in service. Typically, you can't provide the top quality while also producing high efficiency, and vice versa. And the reason for this is that with goods, what you do to create quality is you make everything the same, you standardize. So every part that comes along the assembly line has to be exactly the same. With service, it's entirely the opposite. Every customer that comes in the door is different. So the key to quality and service is making things different every time. So in manufacturing, you're making everything the same. In service, you're making everything different. So customization rather than standardization is the key in service. So this creates a real difference in terms of how we deal with service compared to goods.
How would you recommend that companies train their service providers to get to this point of understanding each customer is different, each customer requires a different approach?
I think it comes down to a couple of different things. I think one thing is that individuals can't think about their job in terms of a script. You know, if you think about an actor is supposed to say certain words every time. And there are some services that still try to do that. Like if you go into McDonald's, there will be a certain thing that they're supposed to say to you, and they're saying the same thing to everybody. But that's rare. That's an unusual situation. In most services, you don't have that. Instead of a script, people have to have a role. The service providers have to have a role. They need to know what their goal is. They need to know generally what they're doing, but they do not say the same words to everybody. They have to learn and react. It's always a back and forth. Now, the other thing that's really changing that is technology, of course, because technology can be used to automate some of this. So, for example, one of the things that I've worked on is personalization systems, what we call adaptive personalization systems, that learn from the customer over time. Depending upon what the customer's behavior is, the system then changes what it provides the customer. So between the two things, the individual service providers trying to react to the customers in a customized way and technology personalizing for the customer, I think we have a great opportunity to provide better service.
It's fascinating because, you know, in fact, I was telling some people earlier today about, I've been studying the area of what we call perceptual learning. And as you're talking about this and talking about the provider, the individual person providing that service, he or she has to read, if you wish, that person coming in, angry, surprised, whatever it is, and how do we respond to that? And I would presume that this person who we might call an expert service provider, over time has learned, maybe not consciously knowing this, but picks up the key piece of information from that person and then is able to respond in a way that's productive. So
yeah, that's very true. And of course, if you go back to the sales literature over the years, you see a lot of that in the sales literature, because they know that they're not going to be effective selling unless they respond to the cues that they get from the person they're trying to sell to.
A number of years ago, when I was teaching at Virginia Tech, we had an opportunity from a computer company to come in and do some things. And actually, it wasn't the computer company, it was Exxon. And during the expert man's presentation, he made the point, have to teach people how to listen. That's how you're going to get it. If they hear and see and then respond to that. So that's always stuck with me.
Yeah, it's very true. But in this case, it's not just listening.
Right.
I mean, it's listening and observing. You know, you observe behavior as well as listening to what the people say.
Roland, now that we've discussed your career path, we're going to move into something a tad bit more unconventional. We're going to ask you 5 fast questions that allow us to discover more about you.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
The first question is, what superpower would you most like to have?
Wow. Oh. I think that the superpower I would most like to have is the ability to read minds, because that enables you to really know what somebody is like and to be able to respond appropriately to them.
Have you ever fantasized about going to the Olympics?
Yeah, I was pretty serious about that. I really wanted to go to the Olympics, or at least go to the Olympic trials. And when I was a runner, I really wanted to do that. I never could make it, but I did coach a runner who went to the Olympic trials and did quite well, finished 11th in the Olympic trials marathon.
What event would you have competed in?
The marathon.
The marathon, the long distance.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is your favorite place to travel?
I would have to say that's going to be a tough one. I would say it'd be one of 2 places. One is Hawaii, which my wife and I enjoy tremendously, but the other is New Zealand. I've been to New Zealand on a number of occasions, and the South Island of New Zealand in particular is just the most phenomenal place on earth that I can think of.
Do you have a morning ritual?
Morning ritual, yes, I do actually. I get up and go for a run, and then well, first of all, I take care of the dogs. I've got 2 dogs. I always have to take care of the dogs. They come first before everything.
They insist, I bet.
Yes, but then go for a run, and then I meditate. In fact, I meditate twice a day, every day, for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's a practice that I've done since I was in college.
What is the last movie that you saw, and was it a good one or a bad one?
The last movie I saw was Snatch, which was an old movie. It had George Clooney and Brad Pitt in it, and it was terrible. I really didn't like it one bit, and it was a really weird movie in that it had no women in it, which I think is one of the strangest things. You just never see movies with no women. first of all, you're turning off half your audience automatically. So I think they probably made some mistakes in making that movie.
I haven't seen it, but I would wonder about that one too. Roland, we appreciate your time and your insights. So on behalf of the American Marketing Association and the Marketing Legends interview series, I am Kent Monroe. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kent.